Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Hall. There's a lot to love about beer, and that can be tough to remember at times. So in honor of Valentine's Day, I've asked three enthusiastic folks to come on and share what makes their hearts flutter when it comes to lager and ale. But first, please go visit allaboutbeer.com. There, you can find original articles, reviews, news, insights, and podcasts. You can listen to other shows like Brewer to Brewer and the All About Beer podcast with M. Souter and Don Tess simply by searching All About Beer wherever you listen to shows. Don't forget, follow All About Beer on Instagram, Threads, X, and Facebook at All About Beer. And to keep up with all of the smoked beer news and releases, check out This Week in Rauk Beer by searching the group on Facebook or following at TW Rauk Beer on X, Threads, and Instagram. Glassware and apparel is also available too on allaboutbeer.com/merch. This show and all of the work we do, it's supported by you. Please go visit patreon.com/allaboutbeer. A few bucks really does go a long way to help keep the content fresh and to fund writers, photographers, creators, and editors. There's even a pro tier available for all of you professional brewing companies and other organizations out there. If you'd like to learn more about advertising on the show or any of our shows, please email info@allaboutbeer.com. So it's pretty well documented that I can be a cynic about certain things. Sometimes this extends to beer. But on a day like Valentine's Day, it's good to remember the positive and the things to love about beer and the industry producing it. So to help in that endeavor, I've asked three wholly positive people to come on the show and to talk about what inspires them, where the love can be found, and the reasons to get back out there and approach pints with fresh, heart-shaped eyes. Up first is Aaron MJ Gore. He's the Director of Partnerships and Community for Arrived, helping to connect craft breweries with the tools and resources that they need to succeed. With a decade of sales, retail management, and business analytic experience in the craft beverage industry, he loves the opportunities that he has every day to make a difference for small businesses and owners across the country. He is an advanced Cicerone, certified Pommelier, certified cheese scholar, and is a AFNA beer certified. Additionally, he is an active industry advocate, public speaker, beer educator, and the father of two daughters who are, he says, the true passion of his life. Tom M. is a Connecticut-based beer personality who runs the handle It's Always Stout Season on Facebook and Instagram. He says that everything beer-related he does, from fundraisers to raffles, is for charity, including one of his favorites right now, the Cimolo Cancer Center at Yale New Haven Hospital. He was also responsible for setting up the GoFundMe account that is currently helping writer Alex Kidd. And Annette May is an advanced Cicerone BJCP judge, certified sake professional, and is a 27-year veteran of the craft beer industry. She works full-time as a beer and sake educator, as faculty in the Schoolcraft College Brewing Program, where she teaches aspiring brewers sensory evaluation, beer service, draft management, and beer pairing with food and sake as well. She is a regional instructor, exam proctor, and exam grader for the Cicerone certification program, and is a founding member and current scholarship director of Fermentia, a women's craft beverage collection, which is a 501c3 that educates and gives scholarship to women in the fermented beverages industry. She also serves on the Brewers Association's Drought Quality Subcommittee, the BA's Mentorship Subcommittee, and is a mentor in their mentorship program. She and her husband, Mike, as you'll hear in a minute, who is the brewer in the family, are in the process of opening up a brewery and restaurant in the Eastern Market, Detroit, which will be called Full Measure Brewing. The brewery will feature traditional beer styles served superbly, and the restaurant will feature locally sourced foods with an emphasis on fermented foods. They all joined me via Zoom. Here's our conversation. Thanks all for being here. I appreciate it on this Valentine's Day show. And Annette, in reading your bio, I was excited about the brewery that you and your husband are planning on opening in Detroit.
Yes.
Hopefully fairly soon, right?
Hopefully, it's a work in progress or in process because we bought a 100-year-old building and and it's big and it requires a lot of work. But hopefully by the end of the year, we've been
So
working on it for a couple of years already, just the building and construction.
there is, I'm sure, a lot of excitement about opening, and I don't know how many brewers I've talked to and owners I've talked to who are in the process of opening where I meet them and they are in that their soul has been crushed phase by delays or costs or construction or worry and all of that. You strike me as very upbeat at the moment. And since this is the love show, what do you love about the process of opening up a brewery in 2024?
I think, with our situation, it's really anticipation of what we will be doing. I've got to say, I'm not that much directly involved. My husband is one of the three partners. He's also the brewer. So, day to day, I'm not sure if I'm going to actually have a role in there. But I think the big thing is anticipation. And thinking about the glee on people's faces. I hope when they're drinking Mike's beer and also eating the food that we're having, because we're having a restaurant in there, and it's all based around fermentation and food pairings, and so that's really what it is for me right now. Other
Okay.
than that, it's too far off to really think anything more. I'm also excited to see my husband smile because right now, he's been spending 6 months cutting chunks of concrete out of the floor, doing construction. So I'm excited to see him smile when he actually starts thinking about brewing and writing a recipe.
I like that. Um, Aaron, you're pretty much everywhere if social media is to be believed. What have you come across in your more recent travels that, I don't know, inspired you or reignited what seems to be already a pretty strong burning passion for beer these days?
Yeah, no, I think we're in a weird spot as an industry where there's an enormous amount of doom and gloom, for lack of a better word, from people who have been in this industry for quite a while. But the thing that always captures my imagination and excitement is the fact that there's still a lot of people for whom opening a brewery is a dream, and in a lot of ways, the people who are opening those breweries right now are better prepared for what that means than any previous generation. And, some people see that almost in a negative sense. I see it in the exact opposite. I think that means that we're growing up a little bit as an industry and we're getting people who have all that same passion, but they're coming in without having to make it up as they go along. They have the resources, they have the understanding, and they realize that at the end of the day, this is like any small business, something that is going to require an enormous amount of work above and beyond just brewing beer. And that has me excited. I really do think that the best years of craft beer aren't behind it. They are ahead of it because we're finally getting people stepping into this industry, whether it's with incumbent breweries or ones that are fresh to the market, that are doing this with intention and treating it like the business that it always has been. But for a long time, we've been able to kind of treat it more like an expensive hobby. And it's also for the first time in the industry, I really feel like we're starting to see the consumer become, a little more focused on the community aspect as well. For a long time, our consumers were the people who are as diehard into craft beer as we were. And, that's awesome. That's great. But breweries were always meant to be third spaces, and they were always meant to be community gathering places. And for the first time, I really see people taking seriously the fact that for a long time, people were gathering together because of the beer, and now people are gathering together over a beer.
I like that. Um, Tom, and I want to jump to you now just because sort of to piggyback off of that a little bit, but I know you spend a lot of your time on social media. That's where you do a lot of your outreach and your work. And it seems like a lot of time people take to those sites to complain, to throw shade or express displeasure or whatever. But what are the positive aspects? Like, what are the is sort of like what Aaron was saying? Can that apply to the virtual spaces as well?
I mean, it can. I mean, you look at, I mean, yes, if you've been online, and I've been online since, the inception of I can remember, everyone's going to always be negative, and everyone's going to complain because you're hiding behind a keyboard and you're an anonymous person. You could say whatever you want and there's no repercussions. Can it be positive? Yeah. People could show the positive message, what you're doing, the stuff that I do for charity. People see that. I mean, when, Alex Kidd, announced that he had colon cancer, stage 4 colon cancer, people reached out to me right away and were like, can you do something? You do this all the time. And if they didn't know that, they wouldn't know what to do, because people are like, well, what should we do? We should do something. Tom, you do a lot. What can we do? I started the GoFundMe. It's a simple thing like that. But it's just showing, in a lot of local, influencers here in Connecticut, I always throw back at them, what are you doing with your influence? What are you doing to make positive? Yes, you're getting popular on the internet. Yes, you're creating these, you got a great following and you're making these cool reels or TikToks, but what are you doing to help your community to make it better? What are you giving back? Always look at the Mr. Beast example. I've been watching Mr. Beast probably when he was at 1 million. When he started, I'm like, who's this guy? Oh, I like this guy. I'm doing kind of the same thing, but more local, and he's just got a bigger following. And look how much he's blown up, and he just puts everything back into the community and does a lot of philanthropy and stuff like that. So that's how we can be positive and see more and more people doing that, maybe become a trend and do stuff more for charity. And I mean, unfortunately, that's kind of how society works. It has to be a trend, has to be fun to do, and it has to get me views and get me more popular and get more looks on my page. That's great. I make memes. Why? Because that's what the community wants, and that's what's going to get more followers to my page. And if I get more followers to my page, that's more money when I do something for charity. Oh, you got a bottle raffle? Oh, you're doing an event? Oh, I want to go to that event. Okay, this is cool. And the more eyes on that, so you have to, I guess, I try to send a message to be more positive. Yeah, we're all gonna, be negative at things, but if you have a problem with a brewery, tell them. Don't just blast them on social media. If you have a problem with their beer, message them. Now, if they don't answer and you've gone about every other way, then maybe bring it to a community and talk about it and be like, hey, has anybody else had this problem? I've had a problem. And hopefully that community listens and that brewery listens and fixes their problem instead of, nope, you're wrong, and you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a Cicerone. It's like, yeah, but this is the people that are buying your beer. These are the people that are spending the money on your beer. And if you start pushing them away, well, it leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth for the industry, where no one's going to go to your brewery and then they go to another brewery. Well, they're mean. I don't want to go there. The breweries that I go to the most, is not the best beer in the world, but they're great beer and it's great atmosphere and they take care of you. It's still, at the end of the day, it's still customer service. It's a great experience. I've learned that from Trader Joe's. What does everyone say when they walk into a Trader Joe's? What do you give your employees? Like, yeah, we give them drugs. We put it in their water. We give them drugs. It makes them extremely happy. And if you walked into Trader Joe's, our product is not the best product. You can't get everything at a Trader Joe's, but you get a great customer experience, and you get that experience that you go, I'm going to keep coming back here because they value my patronage. They value my visits. They value me as a customer. Well, that's all breweries have to do. You don't have to make the best beer in the world, but you have to value your customers. And when you do all the negativity online and everyone's negative, well, your customers aren't valuing that brewery. But you could turn a negative into a positive with any brewery and make that negative experience for someone into a positive. And then, wow, look at what that brewery did. And do it online and look what that brewery did. I'm going to go visit them more because they're cool. I like how they handle that.
Tom, if Trader Joe's ever started a brewery and they put you in charge, I just got to tell you, I would definitely go there.
Well, I mean,
it would be all stouts, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, it would be all stouts.
New England gets very cold.
That's okay with me.
New England style stouts, is that? Yeah.
I've thrown it out there. You have to make it like, yes, exactly. How do you make a stout hazy and juicy? And I'm like, nah, I'm good. I mean,
no.
Very carefully.
I mean, I'm getting, you see, if you go online, you see a few breweries. I forgot what it was. I think it's in Virginia. And they're literally pouring it. They call it a stout. And I go, this is a milkshake. It's literally a milkshake. It doesn't have the color or anything. And I think that's like, I would consider a New England style stout. It'd be just hazy, juicy, milkshakey, thick. And I'm just like, no, make a stout. Make a stout for people to drink stouts. Yeah, I like a pastry stout or a barrel-aged stout. But like, let's stop reinventing the wheel and stop putting all this shit in our beer, stop making all these crazy flavors and stuff like that. I think, and that's why, now we're going a different topic. I think that's why lagers, lagers and everything are making a comeback, because people are tired of these crazy, crazy beers.
They want beer flavored beer.
Yes,
it's like number one on the list for me.
Yeah.
Beer flavored beer. Because the world of beer flavors is so vast, just using the basic ingredients.
When I want to go back to what Tom was talking about, though, about some of the breweries that are like crushing it in a good way, that are giving people that positive experience, and that can really sort of lead to excitement and, dare I say, love of a particular brand. And that, when you hear stuff like that, what's a brewery or two that comes to mind for you that does that?
You want names of breweries?
Oh yeah, why not?
Yeah, well, I live in Michigan, or Detroit. There's a couple here, and one of them is Batch Brewing, and they're in basically downtown Detroit or close-ish. There's another one called Urban Rest. What they do there's so many things. They do a lot for the community. They're always raising funds, doing good things. They're very family friendly, welcoming. Again, that's got to do with laws, with, dogs. They allow dogs. Well, one of them does, and that depends on laws in the state. So there's that. It's an experience, and so Batch and Urban Rest provide an experience for the whole family, not just the beer drinker. The other thing that is really exciting, as part of the reason they're my main picks, is beer service. They care so much about it. Every beer is poured properly with foam. Every beer's in a beer clean glass. The whole beer service thing is superb. And that is so important, because bottom line, you want that beer to taste as the brewer intended. So a combination of beer service, not being too fat. Everyone needs to make money. So sure, these breweries do triple hopped, DDH, blah, blah, blah. But they also have beers that are beer flavored beer. Great service, really nice bartenders, bartenders that are good, and community involvement.
I like that. Aaron, same question to you, though.
Yeah, I've got a couple for sure. The first one I want to call out is one that I'm sure almost everybody listening to this is probably familiar with, and that'd be Lady Justice out of Colorado.
Yep.
Betsy, Allison, and everybody over there have really become almost spokespeople for an entire community that is grossly underrepresented within the industry, that being the LGBTQ community, and doing an enormous amount of outreach, but also just really putting a focus on creating a welcoming space for everyone and showing that this doesn't have to be something that's limiting for the industry to open up the door and widen the table, but quite the opposite. This creates an environment that is that much more rich and that much more diverse and that much more exciting because of it. And they're doing an enormous amount of emotional labor that really shouldn't fall on them. But I'm glad that we have people who are willing to put that time in and that energy in, and honestly just tell their stories and be so good at raising that attention and turning it into actionable results. We're incredibly fortunate to have them around in the industry. But beyond that, I'd also love to call out the entire Charlotte, North Carolina brewing industry. That's the area that I'm based out of. I'm in South Carolina, right across the border. So I catch a little bit of shit from folks for that. But every year for the last 3 years, myself and Nils Weldy, who's the executive director of the Rhode Island Brewers Guild, have run a charitable collaborative brewing initiative called Court Shoes Only to raise money for acing autism, which helps provide outreach, resources, and support for children with autism using tennis as a medium. And all 3 of those years, the Charlotte industry has just absolutely opened up their hearts and their brew houses to be able to brew beer and get it out into the market to raise those funds and raise awareness and really drive activation and engagement with that cause. And that's something that they're not really getting anything in return for, but it didn't require a huge upsell. It was really honestly as simple as saying, hey guys, our community has a need and we're trying to do something important here. And more often than not, it turned into say no more. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about this industry, because that's not unique to us. It's not unique to Charlotte. That's something that you see in cities and states and regions all over the country, including some of those collaborations that really operate on a more national scale.
Yeah. Annette, you spend a lot of time on education, and when you're working with students, when you're working with people who want to evolve their relationship with beer, be it professional level or just want to be more engaged as a drinker, do you see that change happen in front of your eyes when you're talking with folks? Do you see that, I don't know, that widening acceptance? Like I'm almost like, as I'm saying this, I'm sort of like picturing, the folks who like, welcome religion into their life and they have their arms outstretched kind of thing. Like, what is it like when you're standing in front of a classroom and teaching? Can you see love blossom or
Um,
respect blossom?
I think it's more respect. People enter brewing programs mostly because they already love. What they often don't have is respect for the product, respect for the process, respect for the people that are involved, respect for the history and the important people. And I really see that develop. So many of our students will comment on that. I didn't realize was a huge one. And it's nice to know that our instructors are really imparting some good knowledge that people are taking to heart. So respect. Love is mostly there.
Okay.
Respect, that depends.
Okay. Tom, when you're working on some of the raffles or some of the GoFundMe's, um, I imagine that there is something deeper than just somebody writing a check or just somebody uh, digitally donating and then hoping for either a reward in response or just having their name on a tally board somewhere. Do you get that impression?
I mean, the stuff I've done, there's really no rewards. I mean, I just look at what kind of the craft beer scene does, and I kind of took it where, I'm in a lot of different Facebook groups that trade beer or quote unquote secondary market. And I go, wow, these people are really spending all this money on these beers. I go, well, why don't I get some really, really good beer and put it up for a raffle? And they go, well, how about I make it a great value? And I go, $5 a ticket or something like that. And people are like, oh my God, here's $100. I would have spent it on beer, but I know it's going into a good thing. No one, I mean, the people that I deal with, at least in Connecticut, and I ship out and stuff like that. If they win, if they're out of state, they're not looking for recognition. They're just going, I don't care if I win. I know it's going to a good cause. And if I win, bonus. If I don't, I don't. And then you get some of the other people that are looking because, gambling is gambling, and they want to win certain really good beers that I have. And they know it's going to the good cause, so they may spend a little bit more money. I mean, the Alex Kidd GoFundMe, there was no rewards. There was no nothing. We just put it up there. And then when Alex said it was okay, he posted it and it blew up. I think it's just under $400,000 that they raised for him and his medical bills and everything like that. But it's just you could see how many people cared and how many people he touched. And everyone's like, Tom, you did a great job. I go, I didn't do anything. I literally set up the GoFundMe. I posted in the Barley Wine group, John, which you're a part of, which I didn't realize until the other day.
Yeah.
I posted it in there. And
like I said, I like to stay I like to stay behind the scenes on these things.
Of course. I posted it in there and I posted it out publicly to my people that kind of follow me and stuff like that. And people shared it. And I said, if Alex doesn't want this, then I will return the money back. And it was just that simple. And everyone's like, wow, like, how do I start a GoFundMe? How do I do this? And I go, Alex did everything. He posted it. He touched so many people's lives that made him laugh, that made him, that enjoyed. When I started following him years ago, I'm like, this guy's funny. This guy really makes some funny memes. And then just getting to talk to him a little bit more and then see him in the group and then seeing how the group interacts with each other and, all that good stuff. It's the love of community, and it's the beer just brings us all together. And that's what we love about beer the most, is bringing us together. There's a common thing that brings us together. Now, granted, yes, you get your fanboys, and that's all they want to talk about: beer and this, the hops, and oh, this is thick, and I can taste the cinnamon and this, and and be like any other fan of wine or bourbons or tequilas or whatever. You could do that. But then, like you said in the beginning, of a community, it brings us together. It brings us something that we all like, and then you just go off from there. I've made so many friends in the last 10 years in beer that I've not made in my whole entire life. The people I have now that are considered very close to personal friends that I care for, that I'll do anything for, I've met in the last 10 years of my life. Why? Because beer was a common interest we had. And we go out for beers and we share beers. But do we talk about beers? Sometimes we do if we're trying some new bottles or something from a new brewery we haven't had, and we'll discuss it. But then the topic of conversation goes off into other things. And beer is just that thing that brings us all together that we love the most.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Annette, I mean, you've had a whole career based on that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I started in 95 and there's still people, and I've watched, over all this time, I think 27 years, I've watched people, and it's one thing that keeps me in it. People, and of course, on a personal level, because of some of the work I do, I've been lucky enough to expand the people I've networked with to people all around the country and all around the world. And it's just so heartwarming. When you think about all these wonderful people and how nice they are and kind they are. In general, of course, there's always exceptions, but I think across the board, that's one thing. That's one reason we're still going, the industry's still going, and why people are willing to gamble and go into it, even though we don't all make a ton of money. It's the people.
And you do see that, and you talk to anybody who's been doing this for quite a while. I mean, I haven't been doing it nearly as long as Annette, but I've been doing this most of my adult life. And, they'll all give you the same answer. If you ask them why they do this, it's always the people. The beer itself, that's the kernel, that's the little seed that turns into this big tree, this big flower of human interaction. But at the end of the day, we don't love beer strictly for its hedonistic elements. It's not just about the taste. It's not just about the aroma. Those are nice. Those are great. It's one of the reasons I like pizza. But we love beer because of what else it brings with it. We love it because of the fact that it smooths over some of those social elements and brings people out of the shell. We love it because it gives us a common interest, Tom's point, something to really relate over and really come together over. Even if we know nothing about each other, even if we're coming from entirely different worlds, at least we have that in common. And I think that's really the core of what makes the beer industry and the larger craft beverage industry so special, really is that human element. Because if not for the people, then why the hell are we doing any of this?
The beer's good too.
And the beer's good too. Don't get me wrong.
Really good.
Sometimes the beer's good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, beer is so unique, and that's one of my big loves is how unique the actual product is.
Aaron, when you talk about that, when you talk about just the people and the cultural thrust and the community and all of that, what would you love to see work put towards? Like what would you love to see people put some energy behind in the beer space to make things even better? And I'm going to ask Tom and Annette the same question.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I'd like to see people move away from a lot of the same things that made this industry so great to begin with. And, what I mean by that is part of what makes craft beer so compelling and what brought a lot of us into it was the fact that there is this tight cultural element to it. It really is a subculture as much as it's a beverage, as much as it's an industry. And that is one of the reasons why we were able to bind so closely together. We were able to grow in the face of the adversity of facing down macro beer, and one of the things that really drew me to it initially. But we really need to recognize the fact that we're starting to enter a more mainstream audience, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that the diehards can't also still enjoy the things that draw us to it, but moreover, it also means we need to make a much bigger effort not to, even unintentionally, even with the best intentions, close ranks and really make people feel like an out group. I've said for years that one of the main reasons our industry really does have so many people in it that come from the same demographic background, it wasn't necessarily done out of malice, but it was just that tight cultural element of people bringing people in that they were already hanging out with or already knew or already felt affiliation with. And now we're at that step where even from a business standpoint, we really have to reach beyond our traditional strong points when it came to customers and people within the industry. And we need to become a more diverse, richer tapestry of an industry. And that's something I think that we need to do with intention, because no matter how much we talk about creating these welcoming environments, if we're not going out and making that apparent and making that outreach and making active efforts, then that isn't necessarily being communicated to the people in the groups who need to hear it the most and need to be felt the most welcomed and the most safe in these environments.
Annette, what would you like to see people put some focus on to help them love the industry even more?
There's, two main things for me, and Aaron started into it. There's a lot of work already being done in this section, but it's getting women back to their rightful place in brewing, because that was us way back then, as everybody knows. Getting more respect for women because they were the original brewers, and I'm not just talking about here. In South Africa, for instance, everybody's grandma made, ukumboti. But to this day, most people don't even know that. Everybody's grandma made it. It was made entirely, and they still do. However, unfortunately, as far as I know, it's mostly the men that still drink it. So getting, the role of women in the industry, which again, there's already been a lot of work with that. The other thing that's really important to me is to really getting people to understand the product, because, we all come across this time and time again. I don't like beer, and, beer to them is one beer, or, we have all the beers, and it's, every American or international pale lager you go to a restaurant. Getting people to understand the product and approaching it from a culinary aspect, I think, is really crucial, because so many people just have no idea about the wonderful flavors of beer. And I'm not talking about when you add vanilla and donuts. I'm talking about base ingredients, how wonderful it is. And
I feel like that's an attack on Tom and his love of stouts, because that's where most of the donuts go.
Well,
there's lactose in everything these days, which is also sad, and that should be in stout. Yeah. But understanding beer as a culinary product, I think, is crucial. And there's a lot of people out there doing it. I'm one of them. Aaron does it. Tons of people, but more of that.
Yeah, and I definitely think that for a lot of people, to Annette's point, they think that beer is not for them, and they don't realize just the sheer depth and breadth of flavors you can capture, even within those 4 simple ingredients. I tell people anytime they say, I don't like beer, there's a beer for you. You just haven't found it yet. And that's not on them. The onus is on us as an industry to help them along that journey, because the same things that make beer so wonderful, that enormous diversity of flavors, of aromas, of styles, is also what can make it so difficult to find the ones that really connect with you. So to Annette's point, I think we need to be able to do that engagement and do that education and be able to help people realize that maybe as a red wine drinker, Duchess of Bourgogne is exactly what they need in their life. And they may never have found that without those of us who do this for a living, helping them along that journey.
Well, everybody needs the Duchess in their life, but
I don't disagree.
Tom, same question to you though, and especially like living in the digital space as much as you do. Is there a way to sort of connect with people to help them, or something that they can do to help them love it a little bit more, or is it harder with ones and zeros?
Well, first of all breweries need to make more stouts. That'll bring more people in. That's my,
line forms to the left.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm going to piggyback on a lot of what everyone said. I think my whole story is I was a non-beer drinker. My nickname, people say what the M stands for, is Magners. My nickname when I started helping out my friends open a craft beer bar, I drank Magners all the time. And I'm a red wine cider drinker, mostly cider. And my friends over, I'm turning 45 this year, and friends over and over and over again, try this, try this, try this, try this, try this. And I try everything. Disgusting. I can't stand it. And then the owner of the bar is like, you like coffee, you like chocolate. And he gave me Wolliver's coffee porter. And I was like, this isn't bitter at all. And my mind exploded. And that's kind of where the whole stouts and stout season, and I would just go look for stouts and go look for maltier beers. Never knew malty beers, Belgian beers existed and stuff like that. And I would start drinking all these other beers that I've never heard of because what was on tap was all your macros and maybe one small brewery. Connecticut's I say we're in our not preteen years, but we're starting to become teenage years in beer wise. So people are still learning about these beers. And then you have the people that have been around forever and been drinking all the stuff from Cantillon and all the Belgian breweries, and then all these microbreweries when they were called microbreweries. And it's just like Annette said, it's educating the people. You go to a craft beer bar or a brewery, you should be able to get at least 6 different styles at any time. And I'm not talking about a single, a double, a triple IPA. I'm talking about an IPA. You should get a Pilsner, should have a lager, should have some sort of a dark beer. So maybe an amber or blonde. And then, depending on the type of season it is, always a stout though. So they could come in and try. One of my favorite breweries is New England Brewing Company. And I would go there, and I would only really go there in the winter and February and stuff, because that's when all the dark beers go on. And during the summer, except for Galaxy Pale Ale, which I like Galaxy hops for some odd reason. During the summer,
you are just a conundrum. My gosh,
I'm all over the place. I would only go there in the summer because it'd be 40, not 45, but I'm exaggerating, but a lot of IPAs and singles and doubles. And they learned where we can't put these. We have to have some dark beers. We have to have a Bach on. We have to make a Schwartz beer. We have to make all these different styles. And guess what? Educate our customer about it, where they learn about it. And when they go to another brewery, they try it and they start liking beers they've never even heard of. And that's just with the beer aspect, with, getting us more involved with Annette said, women in brewing and minorities in brewing. Like two of the biggest Sacred Heart Academy in Connecticut has 2 scholarships. One is for an African-American student, and the other is for women in brewing. I donate to both every year as much as I can. Whenever I raise extra money and stuff, I give it to them, or I put it on whatever raffle or something I do, and I try to give them as much money as I can, because it's helping other people. Because unfortunately, the brewing business is white male business, and that's what it's deemed. Well, you have to bring in other cultures into it. And those other cultures are going to have different aspects and different types of ways they want to drink their beer. Yeah, it's not what you always see on TV, the schnapp, oh yes, and they're swirling their bourbon in their glass or their cognac, and they're all ties, and it's the tapestries and leather-bound chairs and leather-bound books on the shelf, and that's the stereotypical of, oh, this is fancy. Well, beer was never meant to be fancy. Beer was the cheap option. Liquors and wine were the fancy for the rich. Well, now beers are coming into $30, $40 a bottle, $50 a bottle. You go to Anchorage Brewing and you're paying $75 a bottle for 12 ounces, and it's a phenomenal beer, but you're spending these more and more money. But not everyone could afford that. Well, beer was always meant to bring that community together and everyone together, not the Bud Light commercials and Bud commercials where, back in the day, you had Spud McKenzie on the beach with all these women in bikinis and stuff like that. And it was like, yeah, a real man drinks Bud. It's like, well, what? No, anybody can drink Bud. Anybody can drink anything they want. But it would deter all the women in brewing or LGBT community or African Americans brewing. Like, well, that doesn't fit my demographic. It doesn't fit what I want. I want to go there. Like, no, well, make your own way of drinking beer and make your own beer. And, we did the Black is Beautiful 3 years ago, I think it was, maybe 4.
Summer of 2020. Yeah.
Was it 2020? And I literally bought all the beer that Connecticut made, plus try to get as much as I can from and raffled it off. And I said, here's a set. And I gave away 2 full sets. And I think I raised like $2,500 just raffling off all the stuff that Connecticut made and donated it right back into Sacred Heart Academy's scholarship.
You're awesome. You're awesome, Tom. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
I try. I said, go ahead.
Can I be you when I grow up?
If you want to be an alcoholic, sure. It's very easy.
All you can drink is stouts.
Well, see, and that's also the funny thing is too. Technically, if I'm on a public and I'm not drinking a stout, oh my god, the camera phones come out, pictures. Tom's not drinking a stout. It's just someone.
Scandal.
Well,
Yeah, it's
someone
like when
just
I show up without a bow tie. Yeah, it's you get typecast pretty quick.
There
Yeah, I
is
was-
no John without a bow tie. It does not exist. The John
My
without a bow
husband-
tie cannot hurt you, people. He cannot hurt you.
My husband gets that if he wears shoes.
If
My
he wears
husband's
shoes,
well known in the brewing community and homebrewing community on a national level because he's a long standing homebrewer. Yeah, he gets that if he wears shoes. He's known as Barefoot Mike, and he does wear them in the brewery when he's brewing.
okay. I was about to
Same.
say this is going to be the call from Terry Ferrendorf in a moment. Of,
Oh yeah, no, of
proper
course he does. Of
PPE.
course he does.
Okay.
He doesn't when he's home brewing though, but he, obviously in a commercial brewery, he's a smart man. But yeah,
Okay.
when he wears shoes. But anyway,
Okay. Like he owns pairs of shoes, right? Or just one pair of shoes?
he only really has his steel toe work boots.
Yeah.
His steel toe gum boots for brewing, and he has a pair of steel toe Red Wings, and he has one pair of good shoes, and that's it.
Okay.
That's it.
I feel like I want to keep going down this path, but since he's not here to talk about it himself, I'm gonna.
I would listen to that episode.
I mean, after the Super Bowl last night with the Jesus commercial and washing the feet, people are like, I never knew that was a Jesus. I didn't understand it was a Jesus commercial. I'm like, yeah,
Sermon on the Mount. Yeah.
Yeah, but the washing the feet of it, and now we're talking about brewing barefoot. So it's like, wait a minute, okay,
It's all connected, Tom.
all
Um,
connected.
All connected.
It's the wording of the feet. If there's yeah. Sorry, I'm going to show myself out. Annette, I wanted to jump back to you quickly. Have you seen a renewed interest in education around beer? I feel like the pandemic kind of screwed everything up, but even in the 20 teens where there was such an explosion of breweries opening and local was the name of the game and it was just how many tap rooms can you get to in a weekend on a bar crawl kind of thing that it and with the rise of internet apps and things like that, that there wasn't necessarily the focus on thinking about what people were consuming, what we all were consuming, as much as it was just trying to keep up with everything that was out there. And I feel like education, which for the early part of the 2000s had been paramount, and beer dinners and talking about culinary experiences and all that for the teens at least, it started to wane a little bit, and then the pandemic kind of screwed it up. But have you seen an upswing in interest?
Definitely.
Okay.
I mean, the pandemic definitely screwed things up. And, if anybody follows any kind of education, college-based attendance and enrollment, it's down across the board. But there's been such a resurgence. I have totally lost track of how many brewing programs there are now. And I talk to a lot of people. I'm in the BA's mentorship program, and I talk to my mentees because they're from all over the country about, consider doing some beer education if that's what you want to do. And invariably there's something in their state. So there's actually a lot of programs, a lot, which is great. But I think over the years they have increased and increased and increased. So like formal brewing programs, but also things like Cicerone. More and more people want to do Cicerone. More and more people want to learn. So I guess the overall answer is there's definitely a renewed interest. It sort of feeds off each other. You realize that you don't really know as much as you thought, especially when it comes to brewing science. And so you start, reading about brewing science, and then all of a sudden you think, well, I'm going to take this class on brewing science. It's like, well, hang on, I'm going to take this class on draft management because that's all about physics and biology, biofilm in draft lines, blah, blah, blah. So it's also feeding off each other and people talking about them. So yes, I think definitely renewed interest from a lot of different areas. BJCP still, there's a lot of interest in BJCP and learning and becoming a judge. And
I like that. And Aaron, you obviously see that at all of the various state conventions that you're going to, the conferences.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the energy is still there and it's still high. And honestly, a lot of what I'm seeing is just that we've really moved the industry out of what it once was. It used to be a lot of extremely passionate, extremely, frankly, obsessed people, and I count myself among that. And that, pardon me, I'd probably count you in that as well. This is what we do, and it's also who we are. And now you're starting to see people are entering in this with plenty of passion, but they're entering into it with more of a sense of professionalism, and frankly, with a lot more resources than they once had. And I do love the fact that beer, more than almost anything else that I can think of, it touches so many different things. And I talk all the time about this. I've learned more about history, and I've learned more about accounting. I've learned more about hospitality, and I've learned more about human resources through my work in beer than I ever would have expected to, or ever probably would have done in just about any other line of work, because it is such a universal constant. I mean, right now I'm learning about SaaS companies and tech startups and the environment that I'm at Arrived, which has been absolutely just invigorating and exciting. But at the end of the day, it still interfaces with this thing, beer, that's kind of the connective tissue for all of it. So I'm definitely seeing a ton of energy still within the industry as people are coming into this and really wanting to not make this their retirement hobby and not just make it their passion, but they want to have a go at making it as a legitimate business that starts top to bottom with a fully vetted business plan, with enough funding to be able to survive the inevitable 4-month delay on opening up that every single brewery ever has had to go through. And they want to understand how to take care of their people and run good compensation programs and be able to provide at least some modicum of benefits downstream. It's people who are coming into this with the tools to do this better than those of us who came before ever even thought to do. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
I agree. That teaches us about geography too, because somebody will say, I come from so-and-so, and you say, oh, I know that town because there's a brewery there.
God, that happens so often. I've learned so much about U.S. geography from that.
Me too. And not only, US, overseas, international.
That international scene too just has me extremely excited. It's so easy for us to, especially given that craft beer in its modern form really kind of was centered here in the US, but UK has had an incredible brewing scene for ages and ages and ages. That's also starting to develop its kind of new generation that's pushing things forward. And you have countries that have not had much of a native brewing culture, or at least not one that's moved outside of the household, who, yes, are in a lot of cases taking notes from American craft beer now, but some of the ones that have been doing this for a few years, like Brazil or Argentina or Japan or Spain, are starting to really put their own spin on things as well in ways that we never would have thought of over here, whether it's native ingredients or just a native outlook on what they want to make beer and how they want to enjoy it, to Tom's point earlier. That's exciting. That just increases the tapestry, because we live in a connected age where that information circles its way back here and gives us more options to play with as well.
And the Ukraine, ongoing assignment with Lana Svetankova and her Ukrainian golden ale. It's really lovely.
She is the best.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she is the best person.
We had a fun podcast, just a shameless plug for the All About Beer podcast with them, Souter and Don Tess, where Lana was on talking about the Ukrainian golden ale and everything behind it. So go listen to that if you haven't. Before I let you all go, and you've certainly shared the love of beer in the industry and the hope and promise of it all, but I wanted to ask each of you the green door question, which is something I've been doing on the show for, I guess, going back to pandemic times now. But the premise is, on the television show The Good Place, in the final season, they introduce a concept of the green door, and the characters are able to walk through this green door and be anywhere they want, doing whatever they want to be doing. And so if we had a green door on our plane of existence, and you could walk through it when this conversation ended and be at any pub or any brewery anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? Who would you want to be with? And what would you like to be drinking? Annette.
Where would I want to? I know who I want to be with. It's Charles Bamforth.
Oh, the Pope of Foam.
The Pope of Foam. And that's the first person that
I thought you were going to say Barefoot Mike. But
well, where would I want to be is possibly in my basement, but that's not helping the community or spreading the word.
No, that's fine.
Because I always
want Charlie Bamforth in your basement. I mean, it sounds like a beer horror movie, but yeah.
I would love to have Charlie. He's my beer hero, and I just missed out on meeting him at the Michigan Brewers Guild conference because I could only stay for day one because I had to come back because I teach. And he was there on day 2 and 3. And I cried. I was like, oh, my chance to gush all over Charlie. So, I just think he's brilliant, of course. And he's also hilariously funny. And he's such a smart ass. I love that combination about him.
So while you're in your basement with Charlie, what would you like to be drinking?
I'm just going to go all out with Charlie and say Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, because what an iconic, beautiful beer. There's a million beers I'd love to drink, but
great head of foam too.
A fresh draft beer poured through clean lines into a beer clean glass. It doesn't have to be a fancy glass, but something that's going to hold the foam, poured with a proper head of foam. And obviously, if Charlie or I or my husband was pouring it, it would be all of the above.
I love that.
I would like to talk to Charlie about this beer because I think everybody knows he's doing work with Sierra.
He is, yeah.
And what an iconic beer. And it's still a beautiful beer to this day.
Tom, any pub, any brewery, anywhere in the world, where do you want to be? Who do you want to be with, and what stout are you drinking?
Well, there you go. I should say a nice crisp lager. No,
yeah.
And just throw you.
I'm gonna have a Helles in my glass. Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with a good Helles. Nice rice lager. Hey. To be honest, I don't know. My whole deal is just go out somewhere and have an adventure, and don't really plan stuff. I mean, when I was starting to get into beer, I'm like, plan the breweries that you want to go to Vermont, plan all these stuff. Now I just pick an area that has a lot of breweries and I go and I look and see, what's out there. I go to Greenville now all the time, Greenville, South Carolina all the time. And I just don't plan anything. I just go, and I got to get to Sierra Nevada sooner or later. It's only an hour away. But I think, I don't know, if it's got to be a stout, I mean, I would love to go to Anchorage, Alaska. To go see Anchorage, to go see their whole brewing process, maybe Weltworks for stout wise. But honestly, the most iconic stout would be go to Dublin and just have a Guinness at Guinness. And just see what everyone talks about, where American Guinness is not the same as, Ireland at Dublin, their Guinness. It's different. Where I hear about all the competitions that all the bars have, who can pour a proper pint. And I've learned how to pour a proper pint, 119.5 seconds and all that stuff. And
except on St. Patrick's Day.
Well, no, I worked so the bar I used to work at was deemed an Irish bar, and we still tried to do proper pints as much as possible. We would never, ever, 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 ever pour it full and just hand it to the customer, where I've gone to other places and here's a full pour right to the top and hand it to the customer. You pour it on the crown, you pour it, you let it sit. Now, granted, if it sits longer than the 119.5 seconds, I understand that. But you never hit, it always would be 3/4 of the way full, and then you would top it off and then give it to the customer. You never, ever. And granted, yes, we were pouring Guinness like crazy. And plug for St. Patrick's Day, if bars do not have Guinness Zero in, because it's not on draft, it's only in cans, every bar should have it because it is delicious. And I was shocked at how great it was. And
it's good.
It is.
So good,
no,
and
I keep it in mind. Yeah.
It will save so many headaches for people getting wasted. And I granted, yes, you want to get wasted, but be safe. Get an Uber, make plans that you can get home safe. Or just go get a Zero and switch it up and drink a Guinness and a Guinness Zero, and every other, and you'll be perfectly fine if you're going to drink all day. Just friends, or just new people, and discovering new people. Just sit me in a pub and I'll just sit there and start making conversations and learning about whatever culture and whatever goes around. And I mean, that's how you learn, is you talk. And you guys are both advanced Cicerones, and one of my good friends, Max Finance, is a master Cicerone. And his
Max.
Yeah,
we like Max,
and I love Max.
He's my plan B for who do I want to be with and where do I want to go.
See, and he's awesome to drink with and just sit there and be educated. And my only time I went to not CBC but JBF, and he was there, he was judging, and him and Emma Sauter were both there, and I watched them because they were both still learning. She's kind of put it on pause, but he was still trying to get the master level.
She's got a budding podcast career now. So yeah.
Yes. And they would just go around and talk about beer and be educated. And I love listening to them talk about unique things and telling me flavors I'm supposed to taste. And it's helped me when I try stuff to match flavors up with like green apple. Or the other day we were drinking a stout, and it was a coffee stout, and I was with friends, and I go, and I smelled it, and I smelled jalapeno, which is green coffee flavored. And I go to my friends who are learning about beer, and they have a podcast. And I was like, here, what do you smell? And they're like, peppermint. Well, like, what else do you smell? And I go, I get a little like pepper jalapeno. I go, exactly. And go, that means the coffee's going out and stuff like that. It's like, really? So he handed over, buddy, what do you smell? And he smelled the same thing. I go, now lock that into your memory. And that means your coffee is slowly fading away. I've had it where it's literally spicy jalapeno before. And I'm like, I had to tell the brewer, I go, hey, I think it's gone bad. You should. And it was a Boston cream pie stout. And I go, I don't think you want jalapeno flavor in your sweet, pastry stout. And he took it away, and he took all the cans away. And the cans were over a year old. And I was like, all right. But it's just about education. And I love learning. I love learning about everything. I'm still learning about beer. I'm still learning about flavors. And I just love
We all are.
Yeah,
exactly. We never stop.
It never stops.
No. And just sitting there and listening to someone talk about beer styles and talk about this and educate them. What am I supposed to be smelling? What am I supposed to be tasting? And then just put it in your back of your brain. It's funny. Treehouse just put a post, name the 9 beers. And I was just by color alone. And I was like, Treehouse, come on, stop. You can't do that. But if someone nails it, they put 9 beers and like 4 of them look exactly the same. And I'm like, how can you do that just by sight alone? It's
I know when they put in the Citra before the Mosaic, and then when they put in the Mosaic before the Citra.
Yeah, and Tom, you would definitely know the Galaxy. We established that's the one for you.
Yes, the taste-wise,
Galaxy. All 3.
Yeah.
All right, wait. Before we go too far down, Aaron.
Yes.
I guess I should probably answer it too. No, for me, it would be Brick Store in Atlanta. If you're talking about just a place that is absolutely doing it right and creating an environment that feels more than the sum of its parts, they are absolutely the perfect example of that. And I'm actually going to steal Annette a little bit of your answer and say Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, but on cask. It's one of the very few places you're able to get it. They always have it on. And that is my favorite beer. That is my favorite beer of all time. And you put it on cask, and all of a sudden you realize that every time you've had it before, the right way that you should have been having it was on cask all along.
I can.
Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely perfect. And as far as who I'd be drinking with, I'm actually going to go ahead and say Bart Watson. I'm a bit of a data nerd, a bit of a junkie for trends and information. So being able to swap socks and hang out, having some drinks and talking data and the state of the industry, I'd enjoy the hell out of.
I just want to, I don't mean to interrupt everyone,
no,
but I've got to do a shout out to my plan B, which is not only Max, but it was actually M. So, my plan B is sitting and having a Westmalle triple at Westmalle with M and Max Finance.
Oh man, can I get on that as a plan B as well?
And
now all of a sudden, Connecticut.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna start checking the All About Beer travel budgets, and maybe we'll just do the whole show from there. Yeah.
I mean, I have beers with them all the time. So
yeah, Tom, that's already your neck of the woods, man. Let's make this a thing.
I mean, having a beer with them in Belgium. I mean, I just she's so just, and Max is just lovely too, and I know they're really good friends. So.
They are.
Yeah.
That's my plan B.
M shops at my Trader Joe's all the time, so I see her, and I don't see Max too often, but last time I saw Max, we went down to Narragansett to try the barley wine that Lee Lord made for Alex Kidd. Yeah, so we tried it. It was excellent. It was a fun time. We had fun. I took pictures. Max did all the work. But it was fun. I love it. Just even that, the process of watching beer being made. I've been to definitely homebrew. I've made beer for charity with New England Brewing Company. I've made on homebrew systems, helping out friends. And I remember one time, one of my good friends, Bill, they did a homebrew day at Two Roads and let everyone bring their equipment at Two Roads. And they were just making homebrew down in the brewery. This is before Two Roads doesn't have any more room. And Bill told me I was the only one asking questions. Everyone was there just to drink and hang out. And I was asking questions about everything. Why do you have the hops now? Why do you do this? Why do you do this? I'm a foodie. I love to cook. It's literally, we're just making soup. We're making soup that turns into alcohol. And that's what we're doing. So why would you add the hops at 60 minutes, at 90 minutes, at 120 minutes, and like, oh, what are this? This is bittering hops, and these are flavor hops, and this is going to give her color and taste. And why this malt? And why does all these breweries use the same base malt? Or why do you use this malt for this? And what is Maris Otter in a barley wine? And what is the difference between American and an English style of barley wine? And all that good stuff. And it's when you actually sit there and learn, and it's just amazing, and you get so much more education, and you appreciate the beer that you're drinking so much more. Like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, it's always everyone's favorite. Everyone said, "What's your favorite beer of all time?" They say Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, and that's great. And it's always used for sensory. Why? Because it's clean. It's gives you exactly what you need as a baseline beer, and then you can add all your tablets and stuff, and then taste the off flavors very easily. But everyone goes to that's their favorite craft beer of all time. And there's maybe a few others out there, but I would say 85% of people always say Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
But it sounds like the revolution is starting here, and I'm all for it. So no, and then I'm looking forward to visiting your brewery when it opens up.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to sharing a beer with you. It's going to be a lot of really good lager beer and cask ale, and we're going to have fun stuff too, but mostly traditional styles, properly served.
And I'm going to encourage everybody to go find Aaron online and learn more about what he's doing with Arrive these days. And then certainly, Tom, all of the charity work that you're doing, and certainly going to the Alex Kidd fundraiser on the GoFundMe. There's a particular number goal that is certainly within reach at the moment, and it'd be nice to see it get there. But thank you for your work on that. And thanks for all three of you for sort of rekindling the love for beer on this Valentine's Day show. I really appreciate it. What do you love about beer? Tell me all about it. My email, it's John Holl. That's JOHNHOLL at allaboutbeer.com. That's also how you can get in touch with questions, comments, or guest suggestions. A reminder, go visit allaboutbeer.com. There you can check out the podcast page, the merch page, and read great new content, as well as the archives going all the way back to 1979. Follow All About Beer on social media at All About Beer. And if you're interested in supporting journalism in the beer space, email us at info@allaboutbeer.com or go to patreon.com/allaboutbeer. One more time, don't forget, All About Beer has a podcast channel now. Search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday. The BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. And check out probrewer.com each week for original articles from the All About Beer team. As for this show, Nate Schweber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Holl. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'm going to be back again to drink beer and to think beer.